Hello everyone, welcome to this week's GT Sport Daily Race C race review, where we are at the Nurburgring 24-hour layout and we are taking Group 3 machinery around the Nordschilefe. And if you've been watching other people's videos on this race this week, you'll be well aware that it's not a great track for racing on, but we're going to have some fun trying to do our very best. We're going to do some races from the back on the Womble account, the wombleskipper account, my account for Oceania and Asia. And we'll see how we get on. So the settings for this one are, as you've seen this on the screen previously there, timer at ×5, fuel at ×2, 2 laps to get round, no strategy whatsoever in this one, they barely even fuel the tyre wear on the second lap. So for this first race that we've jumped into here, we are at the very back, we're starting in at P18, we never set a qualifying time, and we randomly chose the Ford Mustang to do this first race in. Not really going to be the best car for this track. You do need a car with sort of good top end, which the Mustang does have, but you need a good front end on the car as well. Lots of sort of medium fast speed corners, so a car that's quite nimble can certainly be an advantage here. And I would say the Ford Mustang is probably not going to be categorised as a nimble car. We put traction control on there for the very beginning just to get through that last chicane with the cold tyres. Just a little tip, maybe it avoids you a couple of accidents. We go for the overtake down into turn number 1. But here is the perils coming straight from qualifying settings into race settings, and forgetting you've got cold tyres. We didn't even come remotely close to making the corner there, even though I thought I had broke in plenty of time. You can see we missed the first corner by miles. We did manage to catch up with P16 here by the end of the lap. Now we did want to try and get by this car before we go into the Nordschilefe part of the track. So we're going to kind of throw it down the inside here into the turn, the left-hand turn that takes us onto the Nordschilefe off the Nurburgring GP track, and we get that position made up. We've got a little bit of clear track in front of us here as we come on to the fearsome Nordschleife. Very, very narrow, extremely difficult to overtake on, very easy to put a wheel on the grass and around you go. It really is a case of who is the bravest when it comes to this track, and it tends to be a track that I'm a little bit weak on because I don't think bravery is one of my strong suits of my racing. I'm more of a sort of consistent, conservative racer, and I definitely tend to feel that I suffer, particularly in the first half of this track. I definitely find myself falling behind other cars. In the second half I seem to have a little bit more speed, but I wouldn't say it's definitely a strong track for me. It's not a track I drive a great deal, if I'm perfectly honest with you, only really if it's maybe an FIA race on it, or for example a daily race like this week I'll put a few laps in. I do know the track fairly well from my sort of GT5 days, so it's not really like I don't know where I'm going on it. I know the track layout fairly well. I just don't seem to be particularly quick. We'll jump forward here to lap number 2. You can see it's taken us this long to actually catch up with anyone after we sort of made that overtake just after the chicane on lap number 1. Got a group of cars here, maybe about 6 or 7. Potential here if we could sort of just keep the car on the track. Hopefully some other cars will make some mistakes and can maybe sort of start moving up the ranks. At this point though, nobody seemed to be making too many mistakes in this race. I think the only I don't think I've actually seen anyone at this point in this race that had been off the track or any yellow flags. So unusual for this track. As I said, usual will be probably very well aware. Very easy to make a mistake in this track. All you need to do is catch a curb incorrectly, wheel on the grass and around you go. But so far in this race everyone has managed to keep it on the black stuff. So we're very, very close racing there. You can see we're sort of right at the end of this queue, but we're going to make a slight mistake here into the right hander. Just get caught out with the braking a little bit, tried to avoid contact with the Supra in front of us, and did catch them a little bit, but it was enough to give us a tank slapper. Off the track we go, and we pick up a 1-second penalty for our troubles. The Japanese driver Tanaka behind us doing exactly the same in sympathy. But that was to be pretty much the end of that race. We had very little company after that, and we come across the line for a bit of a poor P14. So for the next race we decided we'd had enough of the Ford Mustang and we have moved into the AMG Mercedes GT3. Used the car on the strategy guide, felt pretty good round this track. I've done some qualifying laps with it on the Womble account. It's not as quick as something like the Supra or the Lexus, which seem to be the better cars for this track, but it's not too far off it. and it's quite a comfortable car to drive around what is obviously a very tricky combination. Still starting down at the back of the grid, we're P15 of 16 in this one. Again, as we come through this start sequence, we kind of realise we're going to start on a tricky corner, traction control on, just so we don't kind of embarrass ourselves by spinning off before we even start lap number 1. As soon as we're onto the straight, obviously, traction control off, and we'll get underway. And we will learn our lesson, hopefully, from the last race and actually brake at a respectable part of the track for turn number 1. Let's see if we can succeed with that. Nice and early, nice of lots of space in front of us as well. And we actually not quite make the apex, but it's certainly a better attempt than it was on the previous race. Yellow flags are out, somebody's managed to spin it out coming out of turn at number 2 there. A very, very easy accident to have. Cold tyres, it's a very tight corner, the track's off camber as well, put the throttle down too hard and the car will go round pretty easily. So as you can see here, we'll kind of drop back from the cars in front of us in this first part of the Nordschilefe, but as we come down into the right hander here, lots of cars are going to get it wrong. We had a car off the track to the right hand side, 2 cars going deeper into the gravel. We did our best to try and avoid any contact or instance, but we do catch one of the cars and we pick up a 1 second penalty, which is unfortunate. So after that incident, we were behind the Corvette of the Japanese driver. In front of us, as you can see, we're coming here to the end of lap number 1, and we've been behind the same Corvette for the entirety of the lap, just nowhere to make an overtake without being very forceful and risking a collision or risking ruining somebody else's race. All you can really do is try and save it to the straight here and get a run, nice slipstream down the back straight, and hopefully get the job done by the end of the straight. Unfortunately, going to be the case for us here. Even though the Japanese driver got a penalty, he's got a half second penalty, I've got a 1 second penalty. Serving a penalty on a 2 kilometre straight right at the beginning of it is obviously going to be probably one of the most severe penalty lines in the game. But we've served that penalty now, round about halfway through lap number 2, and you can see we're once again up behind the Japanese driver in the Corvette that we were in lap number 1 as well. And again, it's just going to be very much a case as it was on lap number 1, coming towards the end of lap number 2 here. We're still very much stuck behind the Japanese driver. I'm going to try and use this straight here to try and make the overtake. He's obviously indicating that he's going to stay to the left hand side of the track. We go down the right hand side, but it's going to be a drag race from this point onwards. We're both going to make up a position from somebody else serving a penalty there, but you can see here, Mercedes versus Corvette. It's fairly obvious what car has the better top end, so at least we can learn something from this one, if nothing else. And you can see the Corvette's opened up about a car and a half length worth of distance there. So as we come into the twisty end of the lap, no further opportunities to make up this position unless the Japanese driver gets it completely wrong. And fair play to the Japanese driver, I put a lot of pressure on him over the course of the race. We were in kind of close proximity for pretty much the entirety of the race, and he never made a major mistake that allowed me to get that overtake. So that really is the name of the game. Keep your car on the track and you'll make it very, very difficult for anyone to get past you. But 8th position in that one, slightly better result than the previous race, so we will take that one. So race number 3 here, decided to have another go from the back of the grid. We're on 15th of 19 here. We're behind a 4GT, not a car I would probably recommend picking for this combination. MR cars, obviously pretty quick, but I can imagine they're a bit sketchy on that second lap once. Even though the tyre wear's not that heavy, so I was going to kick in a little bit. We are going to get surprised here though by Evo 1083. He's going to brake awful early here for this chicane. We're just going to catch a little bit of contact there, upset the rear end of his car and pick up a 1 second penalty. Maybe in a little bit of frustration here, we go for an overtake that probably wasn't on. There's nothing dirty about it, I did try to give some space. We just make contact, his car hits the wall and we pick up a further 4 seconds for our troubles. So not only is our race now ruined, we are very likely going to be suffering a red S at the end of this one. Any further penalty, we're going to be in big trouble. So we're behind this Porsche towards the end of lap number 2, just trying to wait to the straight to make an overtake. He's going to make a stake into the corner just beforehand, come back onto the track. We tried to avoid an action, try to predict what was going to happen with his car, made the wrong decision, and just to sort of further compound a pretty rotten race for us, that was to be the end of that one. So we decided that starting from the back was probably not the best idea, either for trying to get a good result. We're losing quite a lot of driver rating, and also not for our sportsmanship rating. So we go into this fourth race here, having set a qualifying time. Not a very good qualifying time, admittedly. It's only in 8 minutes 17. We made a mistake coming out of the corner onto the main straight, I do believe. But it was good enough for fourth in this lobby here. We'll just try and keep this one clean. This was just a case of trying to rebuild up our SR. But going by the qualifying times in front of us, I did feel the win was maybe on. I'm going to get off to a reasonably good start here. We're going to get a run on the Beetle in front of us. Obviously not a great car in a straight line. We're going to keep it defensive down into turn number 1. We're going to have a wee look round the outside, but it's not really on. We're just waiting to try and let the Beetle filter back into that position there and filter back into P number 4. Making sure not to sort of lose the back end out of turn number 2 there, as we have seen a few cars do already today. And again, we're in the queue here. Let's be patient. If we can get an overtake done here on the Grand Prix part of the track, then all good. Even this part of the track is not particularly easy to overtake on, particularly if the car in front of you has got the slipstream, as obviously P2 and 3 have at this point. So feeling quite comfortable at this point, looking at the sort of way the cars were driving in front of us. I did feel we had the pace to maybe get some overtakes done, or at the very least keep up with them, and hopefully they'll make some mistakes. So the win was the aim of this race here. We were certainly trying to get the win, but also keep it nice and clean. I think we're down to 90 SR at this point, so we had to be careful. Want to get that SR back up to 99 by the end of this race. Coming out the right hander there onto the back straight of the Nurburgring. Can we get a run on the Beetle down towards the chicane? It's a faster chicane here with a much shorter braking zone, so it is hard to go for the overtake. Beetle does go defensive, we brake nice and early. No need to try and make any heroic moves at this point. Now we're going to come on to the Nordschilefe here. This is the part of the track where I seem to suffer compared to a lot of other drivers. You will see these cars just start to pull away from me. I feel fairly comfortable on this part of the track, in all honesty. I just don't seem to be very quick, and I'm a bit of a loss as to what it is that I'm doing wrong. Just obviously not brave enough, I guess, or getting early enough on the throttle. But you can just see how they are slowly starting to pull away from me as we go through these S-bends, and nothing that I seem to be able to do to keep up with them. Obviously, as long as we can keep in the slipstream as we come on to the long straight down towards the right hander where we've seen all the cars flying off in the last race, then we should be in good shape for the rest of the lap. And we've managed to kind of achieve that. We are in the slipstream here. Let's come down to the extremely fast right hander you do in 5th gear. Just a sort of lift off the throttle, back on the throttle as early as you dare. If you put a wheel off the track to the left hand side there, then kiss goodbye to your race. We managed to not make that mistake. Neither does anybody else in front of us nor behind, but look at that gap that we've lost. As I said, you can just see there, just can't seem to keep up with anybody in this part of the track. We are coming into a bit of the track. We're a little bit stronger here. Honda NSX is going to make a mistake. I think he caught the curb there, got on the throttle a little bit early, goes off to the right hand side, and that is just exactly what we were looking to try and do in this one. Capitalise on people's mistakes. You can see there's nothing we can do here about the Beetle, even though we're in the slipstream and we're much faster down the straight. The track is so narrow, there's just no way of going for that overtake. So it's just a case of stay as close as you can, try and pressure them into making some kind of mistake which will allow you to take that position. But as long as this Beetle driver here in front of me, as long as they don't make any major mistakes, I'm pretty much stuck behind them until we get to the back straight. At this point, no, P number 1 is going to make a mistake. This is a very easy corner to make a mistake on as well. You have to brake a lot earlier for it than you would think, and I think that's exactly the mistake that P number 1 has made there. He's ended up on the grass. He's had dirty tyres for the next corner, and he's gone off, and that's allowed me and the other Australian driver to move up into P1 and 2. Now we clearly have a pace advantage over the Beetle driver here. Coming down this part of the track, if you can get a lot of compliance from the driver in front of you, you can go for an overtake, but it is very narrow, and you do have to trust that the other driver's just going to keep their line through the kind of meanders downhill here towards the carousel. well, not quite the carousel's just after the corner at the end of this straight here. I didn't really feel that I could trust the driver in front of me. I had no idea who that driver is, never raced him before, and again, you kind of make a move at that at your own risk as well. It can be very easy to have a bit of a collision coming down that part of the track, and it's just completely accidental, and if you catch the grass in the wrong way, then around you go and your race is ruined. And that's it. You've got to weigh up the odds, the balances, whether you're going to go for that kind of move when you know you're quicker than the driver in front of you. If you can just stay with them, you've got this nice long straight towards the end of the lap to go for that move. So it's just a little bit of racecraft there, you know, just trying to make the sensible option, trying to make the right decisions. Remember, we're talking about racecraft, we always say racecraft is all about the decisions you make. If you make good decisions, you'll get good results. You make bad decisions, you'll have a few problems along the way. But we know at this point we are quicker than the Beetle driver in front of us, so it's just a case of stay nice and close, try and force them into a mistake, but not get so close that we get a penalty, and then just wait until the back straight, come off the corner with a sort of sensible gap, and then go for that overtake down there into towards the end of the lap. So coming into the second of the carousels here, now this is where we kind of used our big brain. We didn't want to come off this corner onto the back straight too close to the Beetle driver in front of us, so we just came off the throttle a little bit, didn't come around this corner that quickly. I wanted to be about 6 tenths behind them, that way we can get the absolute best of the slipstream, get a really good slingshot past them, and then hopefully that shouldn't give them enough time to then get into our slipstream and then go for a real overtake down before the end of the straight. And it looks like we've kind of timed it just perfectly. I think we came off about 6.5 tenths. The Mercedes is quicker than the Beetle down the straight anyway. We get the slipstream, we make the overtake, we've got a lot of overspeed, which is going to make it very difficult for the Beetle to go for any kind of repass. And once you get to this part of the track, they've really, unless they're alongside you, which you don't want to be going into this part of the track anyway, they've got no chance of going for that overtake. So job is done, we're up into P number 1. Just a case of executing these last few corners, trying to get a nice gap down into turn number 1 of lap number 2 and drive away from the Beetle, which is pretty much what we managed to do. We just did a wee transition there to the end of lap number 2. And 8 minutes 18.2 is not too bad of a lap. I think we finished about 5 seconds ahead of the Beetle driver in the end, so fairly comfortable once we get into the lead. And nice to finish a session on a victory. I did say in the last video I do like to finish on a good result. That got my SR back up to 99 as well. But a very enjoyable race with I'm very small writing as I try and look at the screen here. Is it Barbakis and Takana behind me as well. He was sort of about half a second behind me for the majority of the first lap, and never did anything too silly, so always good to have a driver like that behind you. I've raced them a few times on this account previously, but this race, it's quite good fun, I will say that, but it's very hard to race on. Once you're on that Nordschilefe, overtaking becomes all but impossible. But yeah, as long as you're having fun, then that is the main thing. So hopefully you're having some good fun on this race yourselves. You're not finding the penalty system too bad, and you've not managed to get yourself reset. Please let me know in the comments how you're getting on. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button, and until the next video, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.